Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural podcast for the WireTap presented to you by the Conservative Wire. We have a lot on the burner today, so let's get started. So after announcing that tomorrow, from recording, Sunday, June 23rd, was set to be the day that raids by ICE officials were to take place across 10 major cities in America, President Trump has called them off. So after his battles and his stances on immigration, why is he doing this? Well, we'll have more on that coming up. And just on the heels of Trump calling off strikes against Iran for shooting down an American drone, Iran executed someone who they claim was a CIA spy. And also Missouri, the state where we broadcast from, is set to possibly become the first state without an operational abortion clinic within its borders. So how is this possible if abortion is legal still in the state of Missouri and across America? Well, we'll tell you why. We have this and more today on the WireTap. Hello, everyone. My name is JD.
And this is Logan.
And this, again, is the inaugural podcast here for the Conservative Wire. So we'll start off here. This is a story from the Daily Mail. And the headline is, Trump announces a 2-week delay on planned dawn raids by ICE targeting a little over 2,000 migrant families in 10 cities across the nation, but says he will deport them if talks fail. This is from Keith Griffith for the Daily Mail. And it goes on, and it talks about how Trump was planning on Sunday, June 23rd, tomorrow from here on the day of recording, to have ICE officials go and detain illegal immigrants who, by court order, were supposed to be deported. And, of course, we can all predict what the left's response is going to be. Their hair's on fire. The world is ending. The sky is falling. All of these immigrants are here illegally, and they've all had court orders out for them for deportation that's been delayed. That ICE has not deported them. They're all supposed to be deported.
Well, it's no surprise their hair is on fire. 7 of the 10 cities, isn't it, are sanctuary cities where the raids are taking place.
So these are the cities that these raids are supposed to take place: New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Houston, Miami, Baltimore, Atlanta, Denver, and New Orleans. So I mean, quite honestly, pretty well every one of those could be is probably a sanctuary city if we're being dead honest.
They're good candidates.
I mean, you definitely know that, like, New York, LA, San Fran,
the coasts,
Chicago,
the coasts
Yeah.
are locks.
Houston would probably, because that's like the only blue city in the state of Texas. Miami probably.
Atlanta,
Baltimore might be iffy. Atlanta might be iffy. Denver, yeah. New Orleans probably, yeah. So I mean, all these are sanctuary cities that they were going to do these raids at. And here the Daily Mail reports that mayors in Chicago and Los Angeles specifically had come out. There were other mayors, probably New York, and, you know, if I had to take a pick, probably San Fran as well. But specifically Chicago and LA, as the Daily Mail reports, is that they have vowed that they will do nothing to help in any of these operations.
That's no surprise.
So, I mean, I don't understand why they're upset, though, because whenever you had this battle a couple months ago with Trump talking about cutting off federal funding for these sanctuary cities, and then you had the legalistic debate of, well, basically all these sanctuary cities are saying is that they're not going to enforce federal law, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Their legal argument is that they're not going to enforce what's federal responsibility. Well, guess what? Now they're enforcing their federal responsibility, and it's still not good enough. So I don't really care that the Democrat mayors are vowing not to help, because they vowed not to help before, and that's why they're a sanctuary city.
That's why we have ICE.
Yeah, that's why we have ICE. That's why ICE is doing this, because they're not doing anything to help this problem of illegal immigration. They're not doing anything to help detain these people. So yeah, it's up to the federal government now. They're deciding, you know what, we're going to do something about it, and it's still not good enough. It's still not good enough. It's still too harsh. The thing is that they just don't believe in borders anymore. If we're just going to be honest with each other, the Democrats don't believe in borders anymore. They don't believe in such thing as borders and boundaries. Not only for nations, but for people. Quite honestly, with their socialist, because we see it now in the primaries, the Democrat primaries coming up for the 2020 elections. And you see the influx of socialism, with the new blood in the Senate, most notably Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But, you see this new blood of socialism, and you see them talking about it, and basically just coming out and straight admitting that, yeah, they're socialists, communists. Whereas before you couldn't do that. Let's go back to McCarthyism and, the Red Scare, and trying to find communists throughout Hollywood and all throughout America, and in the American or Un-American Activities Committee, all that kind of crap.
Boy, Ronald Reagan, he just escaped by that.
But socialism is just out in the open, now. And you see it. And honestly, what comes with that? It comes with a giving up of your rights. It comes with a giving up of your property, everything, to everyone else. Everyone shares everything else. You aren't giving up your life, obviously, but you're giving up your property and your rights, your civil rights, not your natural rights, but your civil rights, to the greater good. You're giving up your property to the greater good. And there's no more boundaries. There's no more borders. There is no more mine. There is no more
personal possession.
And part of that ideology spills over to no borders. There are no borders. Why can't we all just live under one government? Why can't we all just live in one society?
Cut the middleman out.
But that is the root of this issue. If we're really going to get down into it, that is the root of this issue, is that they really don't believe in borders.
They don't believe in borders, and they incentivize people to come to the United States. What, New York City, Bill de Blasio just passed his bill giving all illegals driver's license?
Yeah.
Come on in and get your free license.
You see that? I remember, I think it was 3 years ago, here in the state of Missouri, they were considering giving away what's called A+ scholarships to illegal aliens. They were considering giving A+ scholarships to illegal aliens. A+ scholarships in the state of Missouri, what you do is there's a bunch of paperwork that you do with it, but essentially what you do is you do 50 hours of mentoring or tutoring. You have certain GPA, everything like that. And at certain community colleges throughout Missouri, you get your first 2 years paid fully by the state. And they were going to do this for illegal aliens about 3 years ago, I believe, is whenever this was being discussed. Now,
Missouri's really changed.
Yeah, Missouri was in a dark place back then because that was before 2016, whenever we elected Republican governors again.
Jay Nixon, Claire McCaskill.
That was the era of Jay Nixon, which why Missouri ever elected someone named Nixon, I'll never know. But the point of this delay, and this is a tweet from Trump, and he tweeted this earlier today, actually. He said, at the request of Democrats, I have delayed the illegal immigration removal process, deportation in parentheses, just in case if anybody wasn't clear about what that meant, for 2 weeks to see if Democrats and Republicans can get together and work out a solution to the asylum and loophole problems at the southern border. If not, deportations start.
$10 says nothing will happen and deportations will start.
I would bet money on it. that nothing's going to get done.
We had the government shut down for how many months and nothing got done. What do you think people being deported is going...
Yeah.
That's a grain of salt of an incentive as a 3-month government shutdown was.
I don't care. I mean, this is to the point where it's long overdue. Everything is so long overdue. And I don't really know what you're going to do in 2 weeks. Honestly, I mean, the Democrats are not going to come up with anything substantive that is in any way some sort of reasonable compromise for any of this. I mean, for exact numbers, I mean, estimates vary a little bit, that this is supposed to affect about 2,000 migrant, as the Daily Mail calls it, but about 2,000 illegal immigrant families here in America, and I can't remember what the total just number of individuals was. I mean, it was obviously much more than that. I was wanting to say around 9,000 to 10,000. I think I had seen a number earlier of about how many people this was going to be affecting, these raids that they were going to be doing. But it's to a point now to where, I mean, this has been a problem that's been going on for decades. I mean, this was a problem before Reagan. Perhaps Reagan is the most notable for trying to deal with this in a way, cutting a deal with the Democrats, which ultimately didn't work out because they never came through on their end of the bargain. And it was the first instance of amnesty in America, in mass in the way that we know it today. But, I mean, that was a problem that had been going on for years and years before Reagan.
Yeah.
Well into the 70s.
And before then, you had the border to where it was shut down.
I mean,
in the 1920s.
all but shut down. During World War II, immigration, I mean, virtually all but stopped. I mean, really, for about the first 60 years, to be honest, 50 to 60 years of the 20th century, immigration was kind of hit and miss.
Well,
it just kind of depended, but especially during World War II, immigration was totally shut down.
Well, you had the Industrial Revolution, which led to the influx of people from all over the world to come. You had Ellis Island. And then from there, the United States kind of just shut the door and said, we need to assimilate these people, and we need to allow them to adjust and allow our culture to adjust to be able to suit everyone's needs. Now we just open the border, we let everyone in, we don't allow for not only them, but also our culture and our economy to assimilate to these changes.
Yeah. So, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said today that she had pushed for Trump to halt the deportations, which she called heartless and a brutal action which will tear families apart and inject terror into our communities. I mean, I'm not so sure about the whole tearing families apart.
We don't tear families apart anymore. That's why we have such an issue at the border, because we have to keep them all together.
I mean, that's what I was going to say, because that was the big, thing, was that you were tearing families apart at the border. So now you were having to keep them all together, which was causing, more issues in terms of housing these people and trying to process them in the proper way and inject terror into our communities. The thing is that this is not, I don't dare go down this road, but this is not Nazi Germany here. I mean, you know what? With as much as they compared Trump to Hitler, it might as well just be a 1-to-1 comparison at this point. But I mean, he's not going into communities, he's not going into cities and pulling out American citizens for whatever reason. This isn't like FDR and the Japanese internment camps. Oh, I wish we would have done that story about AOC and what she said about
next week.
Concentration camps. It'll get worse by next week, I know. But, FDR, did that, with the Japanese and the internment
And
camp.
those were American citizens.
Yeah, I mean, those were American citizens, a great progressive hero, FDR, and the New Deal, But Trump is not just going into these communities and rounding up American citizens for whatever reason. It's not like he's just going in to cities and rounding up Muslims or something, like what people say whenever he had the travel ban to the Middle East, to the nations like Saudi Arabia, Iran,
Ironically, Iran.
Yeah, ironically, Iran, which just shot down our drone. But we're not inject terror into our communities. These are people who have come here and broken the law. Their first act of being in American soil, on American soil, and within the borders of the United States was entering illegally. Their first act was a crime against the United States. And the tricky thing about this is that you might have people who have been here for 5, for 6, for 7 years, and by this point, they've established families, they've established roots in their community, they've done these things, and this is where it gets tricky for trying to find a solution that's workable within reason for everyone, because if the Democrats had their way, we wouldn't have a southern border, we wouldn't have customs, we wouldn't have any of these things. People would just be able to come in and leave the United States freely, be able to suck on the welfare dole, whatever, be able to buy their weed wherever they wanted.
And that's what you're met with.
It's hard finding a reasonable compromise, because let's face it, by now, not even by now, by the middle of the Obama administration, by 2014, you were not going to have or by 2012 rather, you were not going to have any sort of deportations of illegals who were already here, like all of them. The whole estimated group of illegals, there was no way that you were going to be able to get them all out by that point anyway. That point had long passed by the time Obama was reelected, let alone here we are 7 years later.
And going to your point about a compromise, you have the Republicans, and we have Donald Trump who wants to build that wall, and then you have Democrats who want complete no borders. They don't even want any kind of border at all, the abolishment of ICE. Where do you find a common ground? Where do you find the middle ground?
I'm not sure what a compromise looks like at this point, because I think that the longer and longer and longer that this goes on, the worse and worse and worse it gets for people who actually want a reasonable solution.
Yeah.
I think the worse and worse and worse it gets for people who voted for Trump, because they wanted the wall. The longer time goes on, the harder it's going to be to get that. I mean, you've had this GoFundMe wall down there, which actually it started construction. I can't remember outside of what town it was, but it had gotten tied up with legalese, with paperwork and permits and all that. Well, all that jazz.
Ever since,
but that GoFundMe that was for building the border wall actually did get started. The wall actually had begun construction.
Well, honestly, you won't begin to see any kind, I think, of building of the wall or any kind of funding that would go towards the wall until Trump's second term.
Yeah.
And ever since he got elected first, I don't think you were ever really going to see anything till even the second term. Because I feel like at that point, Republicans would have begun to wake up and they would have realized, wow, America likes this guy. They support his ideas.
Yeah.
So the Republican Congress maybe would have grown some and begun to help fund that. But,
so it says that this was from earlier today on the South Lawn of the White House this morning. Said these people that came into the country illegally, they've been served and gone through a process of the courts. They have to be removed from the country, and they will be removed from the country. Everybody that came into the country illegally will be brought out of the country very legally. I like that little addendum to it, very legally. But Daily Mail also says that in announcing the delay, Trump gave Congress an ultimatum to fix the loopholes in the asylum process, likely referring to the patchwork of legal restrictions which allow many Central Americans to cross the border illegally and quickly walk free if they arrive with a child. And just hours earlier, Trump had been adamant that the enforcement action would move forward, blah, 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 blah. So, I'm not sure, and this is what I've been kind of racking my brain on, I'm not sure what the strategy is. I'm not sure what the long-term game plan is with this. Because there has to be one. There has to be a reason. You don't come up, you don't go after this so aggressively, be so adamant about it, and then flip and turn the switch on it so fast without a good reason. I don't know what it is, because you just saw it in this article, mentions it, similar to the Iran strike, in which Trump said that 10 minutes before it was supposed to go on, he decided to call it off because there were going to be an estimated 150 civilians killed. So it makes you wonder what the strategy is here with this and why he's giving them time. I mean, other than just the low-hanging fruit answer of, I don't know, to appear, to appear more benevolent and to appear like he's trying to make a deal or something. I'm not quite sure. I've been racking my brain about it, but I can't quite figure out maybe what it is that his goal is with it.
No idea.
I really don't. There has to be a strategy here. There has to be some sort of strategy as to why he's doing this the way that he is.
You have the Sunday school answer of he just wants to have a better media appearance.
Yeah, or something. And like I said, that's the low-hanging fruit. There has to be something a little more that he's trying to do here.
I don't know if maybe they feel like they have something that could possibly come as a compromise if they've been able to create something, and now he just wants to force Democrats to the table to try to get that together.
Maybe. Other than just placing the onus on the Democrats to try to do something, and the thought that had crossed my mind was with the debates, coming up. Is it this week?
Wednesday,
yes. Wednesday that we have, the first debate. Is it maybe something? Is he trying to do something to manipulate the candidates in some way, with the debate? Events happening prior to the debate to kind of put them on their heels?
To have to answer.
To have to try to, come up with an answer, capitulate about something.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe... I don't know. And quite honestly, I'll just be honest. I had no idea why he...
How do you feel...
Why he flip-flopped on
How do you feel about Democrats walking away from the table earlier this week on a deal with Trump on immigration?
Yeah. Or
how would you work on this?
Maybe it's... now that I got the wheels turning, maybe it's just to highlight how absolutely void of any sort of substantive idea that the Democrats are on immigration. Maybe it really is, as the debates come up and everything, it really is to highlight and to put a shining focus on just how void they are of any substantive ideas of any kind.
Kidding me? They have all sorts of ideas.
Which, I mean, if he wanted to do that, he could have just done 1 week.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he gives them a 2-week period, kind of like he did with, with the government shutdown. He gave, 3 weeks?
Something like that.
For finding funding. I think it was a 3-week period. Here he's given, 2 weeks to try to hammer something out. Other than just, obviously, takes a long time for things to get rolling on Capitol Hill, so it'd probably take every bit of 2 weeks to get something done. But also, it does perfectly kind of line up. And, maybe that's a little hidden strategy in there. I don't know.
It'll be the 13th day before the first meeting is held.
Yeah, I mean, it would be toward the end of that first week before they would even, come near having a meeting of some sort.
Hey, they have all sorts of ideas. First, they're going to abolish ICE. Then they're going to tear down the existing barbed wire on the border. And then they're going to pave roads into San Francisco and other cities.
Yeah, they're just, it wouldn't surprise me if the state of California just funds like a tunnel from somewhere in Mexico.
That's where the first Hyperloop's going to go.
Straight to San Francisco.
From Mexico to San Francisco.
So that way the illegals don't have to build tunnels under our wall anymore or fences. They just build one straight to San Fran. And then from there they can take Amtrak across America or something. Alright, so I have a story here from The Sun in UK. And it mainly talks about the events that occurred with Iran earlier this week, with the drone being struck and Trump. But this is from today. It's from Jacob Dernhuber, and a former Ministry of Defense official from Great Britain named Jalal Hajizavar was killed at the infamous Rajai Shar prison in Iran after officials found documents and spying equipment at his home, and intelligence officials apparently caught him spying for the CIA here in America. So this is it's just getting more interesting.
You're beginning to learn more things, and I think you'll continue to.
Yeah, things are beginning to get a lot more interesting with this whole debacle with Iran and with the drone. And then Trump calls off the strike, like we previously mentioned, about 10 minutes before it happened. And as of right now, we have a warship stationed over there, or we have a battleship. But it's just getting interesting what Iran is doing, because why would you do this? Why would you do this after, by the grace of God, Donald Trump called off an attack against you?
And honestly, the calling off of the attack, the reason it's come out is that there would be 150 civilian casualties. And I don't doubt that was probably a major reason that he did it, but I also feel like there was probably another reason. There's a more strategic reason, I feel like, that they didn't want to do that.
Here later on in the article, The Sun says that American military assets are in the region, including the missile cruiser, the USS Late Gulf, which has been put on alert after the Islamic Republic shot down our drone. And that is it's a battleship that's been placed on 72-hour standby to attack Iran. So it's just kind of a confusing sequence of events.
It very much is.
And stuff like this typically is, to where it... Well, I don't want to say that it typically is confusing, because most of the time it's not. Because whenever somebody does something, they do it intentionally. And Iran just executed somebody who they believed were giving secrets to the CIA, to us. So, I mean, I can't. How do I word this? I don't want to say that I can't necessarily blame them because they don't want secret. I mean, let's be honest. The United States and Iran are not on good terms. They are. I mean, I think that it's pretty clear that they're enemies. I mean, even though that we've tried to do deals with them and stuff like that, with like the nuclear deal, all that kind of crap, they're not our friends.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, we wouldn't kill somebody if they were giving secrets to Iran. They'd be imprisoned.
Treason, yeah.
I mean, it's treasonous, but we wouldn't kill them. We wouldn't execute them like what happened here.
America doesn't do that.
Now, I mean, this wasn't an American citizen. This was a British, he had worked for the Ministry of Defense in Britain, so I assume that he's a British national. Jalal Hajizavar was his name, though. So I don't know where he's from.
And honestly, that's another surprising thing to me, is that Iran they target the United States and they do all this, but now that they're even beginning to target British, you're targeting the largest countries in the world community.
I mean, the prime target there was the United States. Britain just so happened to be collateral damage.
I'm sure they're not happy about that.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, it's an attack against British, former British officials. But
so if Iran keeps on doing this, they're going to turn the world community against them.
Yeah,
they're trying to goat the United States, I think, into looking like the aggressor and the bully. Mm-hmm. And I think props to Trump for possibly calling off the raid, putting more sanctions on Iran, destroying their economy.
I don't know. We'll see, because that's really all you can do in this instance, because there's really only one person, two people who really make these kind of decisions, and that's the leaders on each side who make these decisions and ultimately give it the green light.
Besides, when it comes to nukes, there's two keys there.
But you had a story for us.
Of course I did.
Didn't you, Logan?
Yeah. So an interesting story I found. It's from the Daily News, and New York is looking to pass. I believe they already passed it actually this Thursday. This is a bit of an old story, but still prominent, I think. They're passing new climate acts in New York State. And Chris Cuomo said, "I want New York to have the most aggressive climate change program in the United States. Our goal from day one was to reclaim New York's legacy as the most progressive capital and to show other states and the country the way forward. I think climate change is the issue of our lifetime. Liberal stuff, liberal stuff." So,
did somebody take the mantle of the most progressive city?
It's between California.
I guess like L.A. and
New
York.
LA and New York have been having this spat for years.
A spat that nobody on God's green earth cares anything about.
San Francisco comes in every once in a while as the triple threat.
Nobody gives a flying crap which one of them is worse. They're both terrible.
So, Cuomo called this the Climate and Communities Protection Act, his own version of the Green New Deal. 70% of electricity used in the state has to come from renewable resources such as wind, solar, and hydro by 2030, and 100% by 2040.
Oh my God! He is
set to power his state by the sun, the wind, and water. Earth, wind, and fire.
Earth, wind, and fire. Oh my God. I mean, the scary thing is that this isn't just the Chris Cuomo, dictatorship in New York. This has to go through multiple people.
The funny thing, I found the funniest thing out of this
There's
whole thing.
multiple people with this illness.
Well, I'm still worried because I'm hung up on this quote where he says, "We want to reclaim New York's legacy." Who are they competing against?
Who are they? Who else has done anything? Who else has even proposed anything like this?
So we're gonna have to follow this story to see what city tries to outdo this. 100% by 2030. Is that?
So I mean, this is just New York City, right?
This is. I think it's actually New York State.
It's state?
I think it might be New York State.
No. There's no way.
Bill sponsored by Todd Kaminsky of Nassau County.
Nassau County.
Nassau County.
That,
it passed the Senate Wednesday night.
jeez.
So yeah, this is going state.
So this is statewide.
This is statewide.
So this isn't just a bill that was passed for New York. This is a bill that was passed for the whole state.
For the whole state.
Of New York.
For the whole state of New York.
Good God.
So it already passed the Senate.
New York is becoming a wasteland. I mean, their ridiculous minimum wage.
Oh, they're excited because
Makes it,
they think this is the way the country is going, and this will give them an advantage in 30 years.
Yeah, I'm sure that they feel that, they'll be pioneers in this field, and God's sakes, with, what we're seeing in Congress and, the millennials and everything like that, and, as generations go on and get older, who knows, they might be pioneers. This might be what's coming for everyone else. God help us all if that's the case. But I mean, New York is just becoming a wasteland because you already have, your ridiculous minimum wage there that kills and stymies any and all types of small business growth. It only increases inequality between poor people and just normal middle class people. That disparity grows whenever you have a higher minimum wage.
I wish it was right. I wish
Your cost of living is outrageous, and now that it's only going to come through wind and solar and water, three of the most ineffective ways of creating energy.
I wished it worked. I wish I could do this.
I wish I could snip the cables for Ameren UE and stick solar panels on my roof, and have my own energy. But it just doesn't. Maybe in the future it will, but we're not there yet. We're just not there yet. It doesn't work well. About the only useful thing that solar energy provides is for your calculator when the battery goes dead.
That's like the most helpful feature in the world.
But, God, New York.
You can have a calculator forever and just screw batteries. I have the sun.
So, we're going to move forward here a little bit. And this is coming from the Wall Street Journal. Headline, Missouri Health Department declines to renew license for state's last abortion clinic. This is from Jennifer Kalfas, again for the Wall Street Journal. And Missouri's Health Department declined to renew the license of the state's last abortion clinic Friday, which this is the state's only abortion clinic, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
been
the only one for years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been the only one for a while. And the way that that's written makes it seem like that Missouri has been systematically eliminating them. And as we said, we broadcast here from Missouri. We're residents of Missouri, and that's not the case. This clinic in St. Louis has been the only one for a long time.
Like 10 years or more.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time that this has been the only one.
And honestly, you've had one in St. Louis, and if you know geography, I think the last one was in Kansas City.
Yeah, I think
on the other side of the state.
I mean, yeah. Now, I don't know about Kansas. They might have one in, like, Kansas City, Kansas. And
probably.
They might have it on, like, the other side of Kansas City.
They have them in Illinois. They probably...
Yeah, I mean, they have them, like, all over the place in Illinois. But in terms of Kansas City, Missouri, no, there's not one there anymore. It might be in Kansas City, Kansas, right across the line.
Possibly.
Borderline, but it's not in Missouri. So this one in St. Louis has been the only one for a while. So saying it's like the state's last abortion clinic, like, I don't know, Governor Parsons has been going out and like torching them at night with a container of gasoline. Just isn't accurate to say. But this is a move that could make Missouri the first state in the United States without an abortion clinic for decades. It'll be the first one in decades that has not had an abortion clinic within its borders. For now, the decision is symbolic. The clinic will continue providing abortion services while a court injunction remains in effect. The state's Department of Health and Senior Services announced it wouldn't renew the license for Planned Parenthood in the St. Louis region before a Friday court hearing. The clinic's license was set to expire on May 31st, but a St. Louis Circuit Court issued a preliminary injunction that kept its doors open. That injunction will stay in effect until further ruling from the court, a judge said in a hearing on Friday morning. So I mean, as of right now, once again, you see this with stuff like immigration for Trump and numerous other things, the travel ban, like we mentioned earlier. But, once again, a court is the only thing keeping Planned Parenthood alive here in the state of Missouri. And the reason why Planned Parenthood is even on the chopping block anyway is because of the Planned Parenthood clinic not abiding by the rules and the guidelines and the regulations of the state for operating the clinic, and there has been basically no attempt by Planned Parenthood to rectify any of the issues the state's giving them and telling them your clinic is going to be shut down if you don't fix these problems.
It was upwards of 30 issues that they had found.
I mean, it was over like 30 issues.
And they had a number of doctors, I don't even think, that were licensed.
Yeah.
They didn't have the proper licensing.
Yeah. They didn't have
their licensing.
They didn't have like proper licensing or up-to-date licensing. They might have had in the past, but it wasn't up-to-date or current. They just had a whole slew of issues.
So you can't really say that he's going after them. He is a pro-life governor, but at the same time, you have all of these issues. You can't blame the health department. It's not like them and Governor Parsons are having a nice kudo fest trying to take you down.
So, Randall Williams, the director of the Health and Senior Services here in Missouri, said that access is always incredibly important to us, but just understand in the regulatory environment, our North Star is always the individual who's getting patient care. We never let anything interfere with the basic patient care that a patient is receiving. The clinic has defended its practices and argued the state has used fear-mongering as a tactic to push back against abortion access in Missouri. The state has said its focus is on maintaining health and safety standards. Governor Parsons said that if you don't provide a standard of care that ensures the safety of women, you shouldn't be allowed to operate. It's that simple. He added that if the clinic can show that it is abiding by state laws and regulations, it has every right under the law to have its license renewed. So, there were even instances, I remember as well, and Wall Street Journal actually here mentioned some of it, that there were instances of failed abortions and abortions that had kind of gone wrong, in which women, were harmed, all that kind of stuff, and the proper procedures following that were not, taken.
Didn't one of the women have to have an abortion performed like 3 days in a row?
I think that, there was like systemic problems there, and just the proper procedures and the channels for these kind of things were not followed. They kind of did their own thing. And the state's health department, Wall Street Journal says, filed a statement to the court that described 30 deficiencies and issues it found within the clinic. So, also, Wall Street Journal says here is that Missouri is just one of 6 states with only one abortion clinic, and that includes the states of Kentucky, Mississippi, West Virginia, North Dakota, and South Dakota. So, I mean, we're not the only one that has only one abortion clinic, and like we had just mentioned, I'm not so sure what the national media is saying about this. I'm sure that they're freaking out, that they're going over the cliff about this, because Missouri had just passed the abortion ban earlier this year, or earlier this summer actually, that prohibited abortion after 8 weeks of pregnancy, except in cases of medical emergencies. So, I'm sure that they're freaking out about the state of Missouri, because quite frankly, Missouri has been one of the leading states on this issue, probably behind Alabama, just because of their notoriety and their public outcry and controversy that they had.
Oh yeah, Alabama, they've had more controversy, I'd say, surrounding it, national media coverage, than Missouri.
Missouri has, because Missouri's just, it's Missouri. It's just kind of a flyover. So with that, we will come to our final segment of the podcast, which we call Dots and Dashes. And basically what that is it's a chance for me and Logan to just bring a more lighthearted story, a story that we pick ourselves and we present each individually, to send you into the next week here at the conclusion of the podcast.
Well, welcome to Dots and Dashes. I found a fun story. It's very lighthearted. It's not funny, I guess. You might find it humorous. I don't know. So, Albert Pujols, he was playing a game. I forget when it was. When is it? Earlier this week. Tuesday night's game, Toronto Blue Jays versus the Los Angeles Angels. And at the top of the ninth inning, he noticed a small fan with Down syndrome who was shouting out, wanting him to, he had, a marker, wanting him to, sign, I think, his jersey, or he had a piece of memorabilia, and Albert Pujols went over there, and he actually took his jersey off, signed it, and gave it to him in the middle of the game.
That's really cool. Because, that's, the second big sports story involving Albert Pujols this week, because just last night, Albert Pujols came back to St. Louis for the first time since he left in 2011 after they won the World Series. It's the first time. I was really surprised. I don't understand how he hasn't been back to St. Louis in eight years.
8-9 years, yeah.
I don't know how you haven't come back to St. Louis in that time, because he's been with the Angels the whole time. He's not been bebopping around teams or anything. He's been with the Angels the whole time, so I don't know why the Angels...
That is true.
I don't know why the Angels have never been back in St. Louis over the course of 8 years for a series.
And if they have, maybe he was injured throughout one of the series?
Maybe. Maybe, yeah.
So I found that story cool.
All right.
I always think it's nice. An uplifting story for your week.
That's really cool. And athletes do a lot of that kind of stuff. And
well, I think one of his children,
really cool.
One of his children has Down syndrome.
Does it?
Yeah, he has a foundation.
Because I know, what is it called? I think is it Albert's All Stars? I think that he does charity events here around in the St. Louis area.
It just has the Pujols Family Foundation.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, because they put on an event around St. Louis and they do stuff with special needs kids, and I'm pretty sure it's called Albert's All Stars or something like that, and it's with the Pujols Family Foundation, to where it's I think he actually plays, and like a basketball teams up in St. Louis, like SLU or maybe Lindenwood, stuff like that. Like he'll be on there. He'll have like the college teams, the collegiate teams, and everything play against these special needs kids, and they'll play a recreational game. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if Pujols himself will actually like go in there and play a little bit too. I'm not really sure about that, but it's really cool that they do stuff like that. So
this one you might find interesting, might find amusing.
This one's really. I don't like that you went first.
I'm reading the headline upside down, and I'm not sure.
I don't like that you went first because this one is not. This isn't.
I set the stage of what this is supposed to be.
This isn't
incorrectly.
This isn't the one to follow it. But this is from the Independent in the UK, and this is the headline: Man urinating onto tourist boat from bridge causes several injuries. So,
what are the nature of these injuries?
4 people were injured after a man urinated off a bridge onto a tour boat in Berlin. The city pleasure cruise was targeted as it passed underneath a road crossing on the River Spree. Berlin Fire Department said the incident caused passengers on the top deck to jump up and hit their heads on the low-level Janowitz Bridge. As a pleasure boat on the Spree passed under a bridge, a person urinated from above on the ship, the fire department tweeted. Several people jumped up and were injured while passing through. 4 people were taken to hospital by ambulance. The injured passengers, including 3 women, aged 38, 39, and 48, and a 54-year-old man, were discharged after receiving treatment to minor injuries. 16 rescue workers attended the scene on Friday. Police described the incident as abnormal and said the suspect had not been identified. I sure as heck hope it's abnormal. People just urinating off the bridge as your little river boats are going through
This
Berlin.
is the 5th case of this month.
It's a spree of these kind of crimes.
I've seen this far too often.
So it says that they like the people on the top deck on this boat like jumped up whenever this happened. So I guess that they were surprised by warm water falling on them from above. So they like would like jump up to see like what's going on up there, and then they would like hit their heads on the bridge or something. Well, I guess because it says it's a low-level bridge, so I assume that they were just sitting there, and then they would, like, jump up a little bit, and then they would hit their head.
Well, that's almost surprising that you would have something going through that's that low. To where if people even stand up, they're going to hit their heads. That's...
I mean, yeah, it is surprising for Europe. You would think that everything would be, like, baby-proof.
I'm sorry, but the way you presented that article, I thought that people were injured from this guy's urine. I thought, like, it was putting out people's eyes or something.
I mean, that's the way that it presents it, because it says, man urinating onto tourist boat from bridge causes several injuries. It leads you to believe that his urine has injured several people.
I thought it was putting out eyes, or they were getting sick or infections from it.
Well, other than just the police saying that this is abnormal, I also find it hilarious that it says 16 rescue workers. You needed 16 people to attend to 4 people who hit their head on the bridge because some guy was peeing off the side of it.
You know what? This guy was probably just peeing, and then they just happened to come by. There was probably no malicious intent by this guy.
I don't know. He was probably intoxicated, if we're being totally honest. All right, so I want to thank you guys so much for watching this inaugural edition of the podcast. We've never done one of these before, so make sure you leave your comments, like, favorite, subscribe, the whole shebang. If you want to get into contact with us a little deeper, we have a Twitter. It's at the CWire on Twitter. Capital T, capital C, capital W. Again, at the CWire on Twitter. And we will, talk to you. We will interact with your tweets. You can see more of our content on there as we're reacting to other things within the Twitter universe. Articles from the Washington Post, the New York Times, debating with people. It's always active on the Conservative Wire Twitter, and we hope to see you there and to join us on our journey. So for myself and Logan, we want to thank you guys so much for watching again, and we will see you in our next podcast.